Okay, cool. We're live. Awesome. Folks are rolling in, so we'll give everybody a minute. Um, really excited to be here for another webinar with George from Minutia. I feel like I always say this. You have a really excellent track record of delivering awesome webinars, George. So excited to have you back. Excited that there's more in the pipeline as well. See, as folks are rolling in, please feel free to use the chat. Tell us where you're calling in from. It's always cool to see where everybody is. Why don't I know we jumped on a minute late, so George, why don't I throw it over to you? Would you mind just doing a quick intro of yourself and Minutia, and then we can dive into today's topic, which is research?
Yeah, sure. Let's do it. First of all, let me just say to all people who are joining us today, and everyone who is going to watch this, the video recording and so on. My sound is not good. I'm sorry for that, but it's Easter here in Greece, where I'm currently at, and I'm visiting my family. So that's the best I can have. There will be some echo, but apart from that, I guess I can share my screen with you, and we can get started.
Awesome.
Okay, so can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So let me start slideshow here. That's great. I don't know, this is webinar number 5 or number 6?
I think it's
I've lost track of.
I think it's number 6 now. I think.
Yeah, webinar number 6. Okay, we did 6 webinars and we still have things to say. So I don't know.
Yeah, that's awesome.
and we have one more, right? So let's see
Yes.
what this is going to be about. Anyway, today we are going to discuss research, right? And the 3 types of research to help you define your content strategy. Okay, a couple of things about me for people who may not know me. My name is George. I'm the managing director at Minutia. We are an organic growth acceleration agency for B2B SaaS companies. And today we are going to talk about research for your content strategy, right? Before we do that, a disclaimer. A message that I have for you, because I want to be completely upfront and transparent with my audience. The first point, this presentation will focus on SaaS companies, but I assume that most of its learnings apply to other types of companies like B2B, even B2C, right? Many of the companies mentioned are Minutia's clients and friends, so please expect that I will be positively biased towards them. Ahrefs, which is featured in several cases, is the sponsor of our podcast. So please expect that I will be positively biased towards them as well. And last but not least, we all know and hopefully can agree upon the fact that content marketing and SEO are opinionated fields. What follows represents our way of perceiving things. It's not, right or wrong. It is what it is. But every opinion is, of course, valued and respected, right? And with that, let's get started. First, let's try to answer the question why. Why do we need 3 types of research, right? So we discussed in a previous webinar, and I think this was the first webinar ever we did with Superpath on content strategy. But we discussed back then that there are 3 main types of content. And we said that, the first one is product focused. What people refer to nowadays as product marketing, let's say, content that's focused on the product and its capabilities, right? What the product can do. Then we have content that's created for a search audience. Let's call that SEO content, okay? And then last but not least, we have what we call at Minutia original content, okay? And when I say what we call at Minutia, I'm not saying that we are trying to coin the term or anything like that. It's just a way of like simplifying things and kind of putting a label on something that we have identified as a content type. And under these content types, there are different like formats, right? We can map these content types to different formats. For example, when it comes to product-focused content, we have customer stories and case studies, how-to guides, product ROI reports, and so on and so forth. When it comes to SEO, we have linkable assets. For example, a list post with the statistics that you need to know about a certain topic, and so on and so forth. And of course, when it comes to original content, we have some formats there as well. We have surveys, data studies, invented concepts, personal narratives, third-person narratives, which is not something that we discussed back when we first introduced this concept of original content. Then we have contrarian content, network-based content, and content that's based on trends and events, okay? So content types, content formats, and the question is, why do we need three types of research, right? Because as many people think, and this is how they also practice and how they execute upon their content strategy, keyword research is enough, right? Well, the truth is that the customer journey in most SaaS categories is becoming increasingly multi-touch, right? And in that context, your goal should be to be omnipresent, right? The second point is that most SaaS categories are quite saturated. I would say that unless you're doing something new and innovative, in which case you may think that you're opening a new category. Rarely this is the case, but unless you do something like that, your category, the category you operate in, most likely, the competition is really intense, right? So the cookie cutter approach of just conducting keyword research and going after keywords is not enough anymore, right? And last but not least, we need to keep in mind that, especially with all the things that happen right now, with this overhyped thing of generative content, we should go beyond just text-based content, okay? And in that context, we need more than just keyword research, for example, okay? Now, ideally, we would like things to be as presented in this slide, to have one and last touch point. A visitor searches for something like frame.io alternatives on Google, clicks on the first result by markup, and signs up for a paid account with markup. That's great, okay? And you can also attribute this new customer, since they signed up for a paid account, to this piece of content. That's great. The content marketing team at Markup did their work, okay? This is rarely the case because the actual customer journey, in many cases, of course, is a bit more complex, let's say, okay? And it is as we try to illustrate it here. So here we have 6 touch points. As you can see in the first touch points, and by the way, let me just say that this is a hypothetical scenario, okay? But in the first touch point of this hypothetical scenario, we have a user who searches for something like, what is live streaming on Google? They end up at a blog post by Uscreen, okay? A couple of weeks later, after this person, they know what a live streaming is, they came up with the idea of, why don't we do a live stream and put it on our website? So they search for something like how to put a live stream on your website on Google. Once again, they end up at a blog post by Uscreen, okay? Third touch points, after a few more weeks, the user searches for live streaming platforms on Google, because at this point, they have given their, let's say, problem a name, right? They know that in order to put a live stream on my website, what I need is a live streaming platform. So I'm searching for the best solutions in the market, right? Even though Uscreen's search result is not first in this hypothetical scenario, the user clicks on it and once again visits the website. A couple of days later, this is touch point number 4, the user decides to attend one of Uscreen's webinars on live streaming from your website, okay? This is touch point number 4. In the next touch point, Uscreen's sales team reaches out to the user, as they have seen their visits through Clearbit, let's say, and they have also seen their email on the webinar attendee email list, okay? They share Uscreen's industry report and agree to follow up in a couple of days. In the last touch point, a sales rep passes on the prospect to an account executive. After a demo and a couple of follow-ups, the account executive manages to, quote unquote, close the prospect, okay? It's very complex, right? And as you can see here, yes, many of the touch points were content-based, but it wasn't just text-based content, like, for example, a blog post or anything like that. We had to have a webinar, then we had a product, focused piece of content, the industry report in the 5th touch point, and so on and so forth. So I would say that this is closer to reality than what we saw in the previous slide, okay? Now, when it comes to competition, and by the way, the point that I wanted to illustrate there is the fact that the customer journey becomes increasingly multi-touch, okay? And thus, it's important for us to be omnipresent and not just be present when someone is searching for something on Google, right? Now, when it comes to competition, of course, competition is content type and format specific. Like when it comes to doing surveys, for example, it's not like you have the same competition as competing against review sites, affiliates, your competitors for an alternatives, keyword. However, we are noticing a general tendency toward increasing competition, especially for keyword types with commercial search intent, right? And we can all understand that. And as we said back then, we will use the same graph from the first ever webinar we did with Superpath. When it comes to competition for the content types that we saw earlier, I would say that product-focused content that's created for a search audience is somewhere around here when it comes to the adoption curve. And original content, it's not like you are an innovator or even an early adopter if you're doing original content in 2023. But I would say that still you're somewhere like here, okay, in the early majority. So there is a lot of opportunity and room to explore new content types and new content formats, right? Now, going back to the point that I made about competition for specific formats and like keywords, we did a study last year, and I guess we need to repeat it because it gave us some pretty useful insights. And we examined keywords that have the alternative modifier inside them, right? We examined 102 such keywords. And we saw, no surprise, that many of the websites in the top 10 are review sites, okay? You will see that G2 is missing from here, even though it should be here because it has a very strong presence, because it basically disallows websites from crawling its website. So crawlers from crawling its website. So we couldn't include it in these results. But regardless, the data here paint a very clear picture. The fact that competition is very intense because you are competing not just against your XYZ competitor, but also review sites and affiliate sites that are very competitive when it comes to getting traffic and, of course, then sending it over to you with a commission or something. But they are in the game of generating traffic. So this is very important for them. It's connected to the livelihood of their business. And we did the same for keywords that include the software modifier inside them, right? And when it comes to the page distribution, page type distribution, what kind of pages are included in the top 10 of the search results? No surprise, 42% approximately are review sites. Then we have some feature pages, home pages, blog posts, and so on and so forth. But I think that the important thing here is that review sites have a prominent position among the top search results. The reason why this is important is because, once again, these are keywords that have a commercial intent, both like alternative keywords and software keywords, okay? So you should expect that competition will be very intense there, right? So in that context, you have to find other ways of getting attention. It's not that you shouldn't go after these keywords, but your content strategy should not be just keywords, okay? This is why we are here, and this is why we are discussing and presenting this topic to you. Now, the three types of research to help you define your content strategy. We can get started. We have three types, okay? Audience research, keyword research, and customer research. Let's start with the first one, audience research. Now, when it comes to audience research, we have identified 4 pillars. First of all, we have websites. Websites your target audience is visiting often, either for work purposes. For example, it may be a tool they use, or to consume content on. For example, it may be an online magazine, a media publication, and so on and so forth. Then we have communities your target audience is a part of. You can think of places like Slack, communities in places like Slack, Discord, Reddit, Facebook, and so on and so forth, okay? Number 3, sources of influence. Different sources of influence on different mediums and channels like podcasts, YouTube channels, social media accounts, newsletters, and so on and so forth. And of course, we have some general insights about your target audience. such as how they describe themselves, what hashtags they use, what topics they often talk about, and so on and so forth. Okay. Now, let's take a step back and move forward based on this hypothetical scenario. We are an online proofing software that design companies, creative studios, and web development companies use to collaborate on their work with each other and with their clients. The person who buys from us, or in most cases who makes the decision, is the design lead. Okay. Now, based on this hypothetical scenario and the pillars that we just saw, we have, when it comes to websites, we should be interested in websites like Behance, Dribbble, Figma, because this is a tool that we assume these people use. And then other websites that these people may consume content on, such as uxplanet.org, Design Milk, It's Nice That, and so on and so forth. When it comes to communities, we need to identify places like, graphic design, subreddit, UX design, once again on Reddit, UX, Stack Exchange, Designer Hangout, and so on and so forth. When it comes to sources of influence, that could be, like brands or individuals, right? So, for example, it could be Smashing Magazine, okay, or UX Magazine, or Sketch Together, UI Breakfast when it comes to podcasts, and so on and so forth. And last but not least, we discussed general insights, which is important and could be important mainly for ideation purposes. But you can see here some of the hashtags we identified based on this hypothetical scenario: UX design, design thinking, service design, accessibility, which could be, could spark some interesting conversations about like ideas for content that we could create for this target audience. And also topics like user research, Figma plugins. As we discussed earlier, these people may use Figma for their work. So we should talk about plugins for Figma, user testing, brand identity, information architecture, and so on and so forth. Okay. So this is kind of a map that allows us to see, the websites that our target audience may be visiting often, communities they may be part of, sources of influence, and some general insights that we could use once again for content ideation purposes. An example that I would like to share, and hopefully not many Minutia competitors will be on this webinar. While conducting audience research, the example is, from us, from Minutia, right? So while conducting audience research, we discovered that one of the newsletters our audience is reading is the great contentment newsletter by Tracy Wallace, okay? And we finalized our audience research, and this was almost like a pattern. Many people mentioned it when we asked them, and these are people, by the way, we sell to, right? And many people mentioned that newsletter. And then we were like, wait a minute, should we do something about it? And of course we did, right? We sponsored that newsletter. And this leads to, of course, an increase in brand value because Minutia is associated with a great newsletter like Contentment. It adds one more touch point in the client's journey, let's say, with us. And of course, it generates demand for our services, right? We may have some assumptions or some notions or anything like that, but unless we do the research and we go and ask people who we think belong to our target audience, we will not get these answers that are very important and can be very eye-opening in the context of building your content strategy, right? Do we have any questions before we move forward?
No, we're all good for right now. But a good reminder, if folks do have questions, drop them. If it makes sense to queue it up within the context of that slide, I will. If not, I'll save it for the end.
Okay. Then let's move forward with keyword research, okay? Now, as I mentioned in the beginning, this webinar will focus on SaaS companies, but many of its learnings apply to other types of companies as well, right? Now, specifically for SaaS companies, we have identified these keyword types. We have errors. For example, Safari can't establish a secure connection. We have informational, how to create an online course. We have commercial, and we break commercial down into two categories at Minusia. We have tier A, live streaming platforms, as we discussed earlier. And then we have tier B, when a person is at a different stage. They may be a user of a tool and they are looking for alternatives, or maybe they have identified a software, a solution, as one of the most prominent players in a category, but they are not convinced yet that this is the best solution for them. And they either look for alternatives, or they are looking to compare this solution to another solution. For example, Asana VS Monday, right? Then we have integrations, Shopify to QuickBooks. I want to, get the two tools to work together. We have navigational, for example, HubSpot Academy. I'm looking for a specific page or section on a website. Then we have transactional. I'm ready to take some sort of action with a monetary value, for example, clear scope pricing. Then we have job to be done. I have a very specific job to do, and I want you to help me with that. Business proposal templates. Okay, I want to draft a business proposal. And then, last but not least, we have what we call at Minusia linkable assets, which is pieces of content that have the potential of getting mentions, links, and so on and so forth. An example, voice over IP statistics. Okay, I always get this one wrong. Anyway, not all of these, of course, are content focused, but many of them are, and we saw which of them are in the beginning. Now, let's, like we did with audience research, take a step back and move forward based on this hypothetical scenario. In this hypothetical scenario, we are an online proofing software that design companies, creative studios, and web development companies use to collaborate on their work with each other and with their clients. Okay. Now, the keyword research process in general has 4 main steps. In the first step, you need to make a list of seed, semantic, and branded terms. Okay. We will see how that looks in a minute. Then you need to make a list of competitors from an organic search and a business standpoint. And we will, discuss the distinction between the two. You need to identify keywords by using search intent modifiers. And we will also, share with you a list of search intent modifiers to use while conducting keyword research. And last but not least, okay, you have the terms and you have a keyword database, let's say. You have to be efficient, right? And you can't simply just go after every term in your keyword database. So you need to find a way to prioritize things. We will share a template with you to help you do exactly that. Okay, so we have 4 steps. Now, we discussed that in the first step, you need to define seed, semantic, and branded terms. Based on the hypothetical scenario I shared with you, some seed terms that are tightly connected to to the business and the product, right, should be terms like proofing, markup, review, approve, approval, annotation, and so on and so forth. Some semantic terms now that are semantically associated to what the product is all about are website, web, design, development, UX, workflow, and so on and so forth. And then we have branded terms. And when it comes to branded terms, we are interested in both tools that our target audience may be using, right, to do their work, like Figma, Adobe XD, Webflow, Contentful, and so on and so forth. And also branded terms in terms of competitors, right? And some competitors here in this category could be Markup.io, Atherim, Project Huddle, Go Visually, Markup Hero, Frame.io, and so on and so forth. So we made that list, okay? Then we need to understand the distinction between competitors before we saw how that looks like, because we have 2 types of competitors, 2 categories. First, we have organic search competitors. These are websites whose audience and organic visibility overlap with your website, regardless of whether you compete against them and whether they are a competitor in terms of their product and your product capabilities. And of course, we also have business competitors who are all the direct and indirect competitors that we have. Now, based on our example, that would look like that. organic search competitors, every website that has an overlap with, our audience and the people we are trying to reach, right? And that could be Creative Blog, Web Designer News, Designer Inspiration, The Futur, 99 Designs, and so on and so forth. And when it comes to business competitors, the same names that I shared with you earlier, okay? Now, let me jump out the presentation. This webinar is not about keyword research, of course. We have 3 types of research and we have limited time. After you do that, you, of course, will have access to the keyword research template and the list of search intent modifiers that I mentioned that you can use to do your keyword research. And I know that what I mentioned so far is more of a framework rather than a step-by-step process, okay? But it wasn't meant to be a step-by-step process. I highly recommend, if you are interested in learning more about keyword research for SaaS companies, specifically for SaaS companies, to watch the webinar we did with ClearScope, where I break down, everything that you need to know that goes way beyond what I just shared with you right now when it comes to the main steps of the process and some main elements of it, right? Back to the presentation. Okay, you did all that, right? You identified the C terms, semantic terms, all the competitors, and you created your keyword database using modifiers. You evaluated these keywords, and you are in the position to prioritize them based on a metric using our templates. Question is that enough to help you reach your goals? Keep in mind that your competitors are most likely doing some or all of the things that we've shared and that you can dive deeper into by watching the webinar we did with ClearScope. Many of the keywords and keyword types, as we discussed earlier, that you will identify are quite saturated. And last but not least, your goal, which is a mindset shift, let's say, to change from I want to be present only when there is intent to I just want to be present at all times, okay? And let's once again take a step back and use this hypothetical scenario as a vehicle to move forward. We are an online proofing software that design companies, creative studios, and web development companies use to collaborate on their work with each other and with their clients, okay? Now, the person who buys from us is either the business owner or someone who manages other people. So here comes what we call at Minusia role-based keyword research, which goes beyond the limits of the process I said with you earlier. And we have 6 main pillars here. You need to find keywords that help your target audience run their business, which, most likely go way beyond your product's capabilities. You should expect that, right? For example, graphic design sales tax. You need to find keywords and, be present for keywords that will help your target audience grow their business. How to get clients for web design. You need to help your target customers and target audience work with other people. Graphic designer interview questions. This is a person who is hiring for a graphic designer and they are looking for a set of questions they can use in the interview. You need to help and be present when people are searching for things that have to do with how they interact with technology. For example, Webflow plugins. You need to help your target audience and target customers stay up to date. For example, best design conferences. And last but not least, you need to help these people level up their knowledge, okay? And something that we could use as an example here, an example term could be graphic design books, okay? So I would say that the approach changes from we want to be present only when there is intent to we want to be present when our target audience is searching for anything that will help them run their business, grow their business, work with people, work with technology, stay up to date, and learn new things. And this is, as I mentioned, what we call at Minusia role-based keyword research, okay? Now, when it comes to keyword research, we have some biases and pre-existing notions, which I think we should, go over and move forward. The first one would be every page needs to have a target keyword. No, it shouldn't. It doesn't it doesn't feel natural, normal to have a website that only if there is a target keyword, we should create this page, right? Of course, you should create pages and content that do not have a target keyword. The keyword difficulty is high. Keyword difficulty, by the way, is a metric by Ahrefs. I would say that even though it's a good metric, it has its own limitations, right? So you shouldn't take it. It shouldn't be the sole determinant of your decisions. Okay, that's what I want to say. And in that context, I think that the template we are sharing with you, which takes it into account, but up to a certain extent, and you will decide that extent, that approach makes way more sense. Okay, then we have the search volume. Okay, and the search volume is low. You shouldn't care about the search volume as much, right? Because if the intent is there, and if this is a keyword that you should go after either way, you should just go after it, right? And not care as much about the search volume, which I want you to know that once again is a metric that most SEO software have, and it's by no means a perfect metric, right? In most cases, it's based on the average search volume of the last 12 months, which we all know that averages are by no means perfect metrics, right? I can't find this keyword on my SEO software. That's totally fine. Okay, keep in mind that in many cases, the fact that you can't find a keyword on an SEO software doesn't mean that there is no demand for this keyword. So if you think that this is a topic that our target audience discusses and they are interested in it, you should just go after it, right? Then I know that we are it's almost like an obsession with alternative and comparison pages. And I mean, it's not bad to do these pages, but your strategy, your content strategy can't be just comparison pages and alternative pages. You should go beyond that. And hopefully everything that we said so far will help you, even from a mindset shift standpoint, to do that. And this keyword is not relevant to our product. It doesn't have to be, okay? You can't target keywords based on whether they are relevant to your product or not, right? We have some examples and best practices which we will not see, but you will have access to them through this presentation. Okay. Before we move forward to customer research, which is the last of the three, do we have any questions that you would like to share, Jimmy?
Yeah, we do have one that I think would make sense to chat through right now. Sierra from our team at Superpath asked, do you think there's an ideal ratio of comparison and alternative pages to other types of content?
No, and the answer is in a very simplistic way, I guess. It depends. For example, there are some categories. Let's take CRM, for example. There are so many competitors, right? I mean, of course, the number will be higher there in a category with many solutions. But in another category, it may be just 5-6 pages that we need to create. In which case, why not? So I guess the answer is it depends, right? It depends. And don't get me wrong, it's not like we say we advise against them. We just say that yes, you should do them, but your content strategy, if you want to do them, but your content strategy shouldn't be just comparison and alternative pages. I don't know if this is the best answer, but yeah.
Cool. No, that's helpful.
Okay. Customer research then. When it comes to customer research, we have 4 pillars. The first one, we have customer insights, okay? We have insights from people who pay for our product, which we can retrieve through customer surveys, jobs to be done, interviews, and other activities. Then we need to try to retrieve insights from people who show interest in our product, regardless of whether they bought from us or not, okay? And this, of course, we can retrieve by analyzing our sales calls, assuming that we have the approval by some of our prospects to record them, and ask insights from our sales team. Okay, maintain an open dialogue with them. Okay, because it's not just what's being discussed in these sales calls. I think that it's always good to, as a content person, to maintain an open dialogue with your sales team. Then we have product insights that are product specific, which we can retrieve by analyzing customer support tickets, product reviews on review sites like G2, and of course, run in-product surveys. Okay, and last but not least, we have exit insights, and these are insights from people who used to pay for our product, and for whatever reason, obviously the reason why we want to talk to them is to find out what that reason is, decided to cancel and either look for another solution or stop using solutions like ours altogether. Okay, now the question is, what are we looking for? And I would say, of course, these are some of the things that we are looking for. You can go way beyond that, but this can be a starting point, right? So first, what the pain points are, what the jobs to be done and use cases are, what makes people choose our solution, what makes people not to choose our solution, what makes people leave our competitors, what makes people leave us, our solution, what are the best and worst features of our product, who are our direct and indirect competitors. And regarding that point, let me just share something really quick. We did a survey with one of our clients last year, and it was in the beginning of the engagement. And back then we had some notions some notions, I guess, as to who our competitors are, right? And we were certain about that. Like, we knew that these are the tools that people use, and will either, they will come from them, or after they leave our solution, they will go to one of these products, right? Solutions. We did this survey, which was a very simple survey, right? And through that survey, there was a pattern that emerged, which was the fact that we identified two solutions, two SaaS companies that we, didn't know about, and we, in all honesty, we didn't consider them as a competitor, and people mentioned them over and over again. And then, after taking a look at the website, it made sense why they considered those as, like a viable alternative. Either they came from that solution, basically, yeah, that was the question, that they came from that solution, or we could assume that they would go to that solution after they leave us. But this was eye-opening, and it was eye-opening in the sense of, very often we assume that we know, but we don't know. Okay, and so it's better to ask, and there's no better source of truth than your customers. Okay, based on the 4 pillars that we just saw. Then we have number 9, what people do before and after they use your product, and anything else that you can retrieve. When it comes to an example about that, we have a piece of content here. As you can see, the title reads Best 16 Free Google Sheets Dashboard Templates for 2023 by Datapad. Okay. Quick disclaimer, I'm personally connected with one of the company's co-founders, John. He's my friend, but regardless, I will share the example. According to Ahrefs, this piece of content ranks for more than 2,100 keywords and brings in more than, let's say, 5K visits per month, right? It also ranks number 1 for the target term Google Sheets Dashboard Templates. Okay, that's great. The thing is that one of the main reasons why this page generates leads, which goes beyond just generating traffic and visits, is because it includes drawbacks of Google Sheets when it comes to dashboarding. And you can see here the section. What is a drawback of using Google Sheets dashboard templates? Okay, these drawbacks now are the outcome of interviews that my friend John conducted with people who used to use Google Sheets and switched to a solution like Datapad. Okay, and here this goes back to point number 9, I guess, that I shared with you just now. We make assumptions and we think that we know, but very often we don't know. And also, it's very important to ask, because in this case, we will assume that our competitors are naturally like other dashboarding software, right? But you go and ask people, and they will tell you that very often they will tell you that no, actually we are coming from Google Sheets, right? And you wouldn't consider Google Sheets as a viable competitor, but you ask people and they tell you that, yeah, actually this is where we come from, right? So the point that I'm trying to make here is that forget about the assumptions that you have or any biases and like pre-existing notions. Go and ask people, because this is the ultimate source of truth. Okay. We have some resources here for you. We have the 2 templates that you will get. One of them, the keyword research tool, and the other one, the search intent modifiers list, the webinar with ClearScope that I shared with you, and another relevant webinar with ClearScope that you can also watch here. Okay, that would be it.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you so much, George. If people do have questions about any of that, please feel free to drop them now. We don't have any at the moment. I feel like, George, honestly, this is sort of like a nice break, kind of like a back to basics type of conversation about content marketing. You know, so many of the conversations that we've been having and that we see in the Slack group right now are, you know, it's AI, but it's also like just, you know, I feel like there's a lot of kind of like emerging stuff happening right now. There's definitely like a do more with less trend that's kind of squeezing some teams down. A lot of confusion, not confusion, but just sort of like disruption around the AI space. So it's good to just kind of like get back to some of the really fundamental things that help a content team operate really well.
I was thinking about that today, and I mean, like almost every other discussion right now is about ChatGPT and where all this thing is going. And I mean, okay, I understand that people feel the need to discuss this right now, but you know, the basics are still there. And I mean, yeah, some things are obviously changing when it comes to how we do content marketing, but some others will remain the same, right? And I understand that there is a hype, but this can also cloud kind of your focus. And I would say that it's important that, especially now, we should take a step back and really try to focus on the basics, get closer to our customers, try to understand the audience, and all these things that we discussed today. And yeah, I mean,
yeah. Are there any tools, George, that you and your team use for audience research? Like SparkToro comes to mind. It's actually not a tool that I've used personally, but I feel like it's mentioned quite a bit. Have you used it, or are there any others that you might recommend?
yeah, we have access to SparkToro. We use it, but I would say manual research also helps, definitely. Ahrefs, in terms of identifying some websites and sources of influence, mostly in terms of websites, right? But SparkToro is a great tool to use for audience research. But beyond that, for example, when it comes to podcasts, you could, use any search engine for podcasts to help you identify these podcasts. And yeah, I think that it should have manual research as well, because like, for example, for podcasts, you could search for the best design podcasts, right? Most likely there will be list posts on Google with the best design podcast, right? You should like visit these pages and review them. And so I would say that it's a mix of tools, yes, like SparkToro, and then manual research as well. It's not a tedious, let's say, task. It's just like thinking smart about things and knowing where to search, right?
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd be curious on the community front. Like I have heard from companies from companies who market to content marketers specifically, that they kind of spy on Superpath, right? Like they're in the group and they observe conversations, and then they use some of what they learn as a way to ideate for their own blog posts, which I think is cool. Like I find that to be sort of interesting. I've actually even found out some of this we just can't control because of the way that Slack operates, but some companies will even set up keyword alerts so that when as certain keywords are mentioned, they'll get an alert. They can jump into that conversation and kind of see what people are talking about. And they're finding stuff that they're just not going to find in other ways. Obviously, that's quite difficult to scale. Do you have a process for how you help your own clients with communities? Because in some cases it's difficult to get into them, right? And then once you are in, most of these communities are not necessarily built for this type of thing. So it's a quite manual process.
I would say, and based on like my experience and our experience as well, trying to do marketing for Minusia, right? You just have to go and ask, right? And there are like different ways you can go about that. A survey could be one, or conversations with your customers, right? Survey is way more scalable, but you just have to ask people. It's not that you can't search for it. I mean, I would assume that right now, if someone writes something like, what are the best communities to join for content marketers, people will like mention Superpath and other prominent communities, right? But again, it goes back to asking people, because even when we did the exercise for Minusia, we asked people, and we saw that some newsletters, they were mentioned like repeatedly, right? And then this was very clear for us that okay, then we need to do something about that, right? So I guess the answer is you just have to go and ask, and there are different ways to ask. A scalable one is do a survey, or yeah, I don't know, if you have a community by yourself, you can ask the community, and so on and so forth. But yeah, this is how I would go about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. There's actually, I feel like a lot of SaaS companies lately have been dabbling in community with probably some mixed results. So, like as folks think, community is always top of mind for me. So, like as you think about it, there's independent communities, Superpath being an example, where if your target customers live there, you can probably join, observe, contribute, kind of do all the things that would can make you a good community member. And then there's the path of creating your own. And we actually have one of our customers has created a Slack community for product managers. It's quite interesting. They're doing a lot of like product focused stuff. I mean, as a topic, but also like they talk about their own product quite a bit in there, which is sort of interesting. And they're getting a lot of good insight, not just about like what features people want and things like that, but it's like as they queue up some of those questions, people are responding with really specific information about how they use some of the tools in their day-to-day workflow, what problems that they run into. It's like really, really insightful stuff that is fairly easy to capture in that format, but would be very difficult to get otherwise.
I think that communities are one of the best vehicles for SaaS companies right now to do marketing and growth and brand building, whatever. And moves like SEMrush's acquisition of Traffic Think Tank, so that this is where things are going, right? Because you see moves like that, and you understand that, yeah, I mean, it's not like every SaaS company has the resources to buy a community, but building a community is not easy either, right? So I would say that you just have to balance things and see what's best, right? Financially and time wise also. But I would say that in general, yeah, I see a lot of value in communities for SaaS companies, and I think that we will see more of that in the future.
Yeah, I hope so. A question from the chat. What are the things I need to tweak if I'm a solopreneur and want to research about a target company to understand more about them? Is it similar or completely different? So it sounds like it's coming from like a business development perspective, which is maybe there's overlap with some of the research stuff that you discussed today. So, but either I'll throw it out to you, George. Like, could you imagine someone kind of using some of the same kind of frameworks you explained to understand your target customers better if you're trying to bring on more business for yourself as a freelancer or consultant?
Yeah, I mean, the learnings are the same, right? Of course, going back to a thing I learned from you, when it comes to like your content strategy should be tied to your business model. And if you're a solopreneur, like it's not like you need like 1,000 leads per month, right? Just a handful of
Yeah.
leads will make a difference, right? So um, I guess that keywords, for example, for keywords in this case wouldn't make as much sense, and SEO in general, right? But other content types like original content would make sense. And
Mm.
where can we identify opportunities for original content? I would say many of the things that I said today will help you in that direction. Uh, the only difference here is the fact that, as if I understand it correctly, that the business model is a bit different than SaaS, where volume matters. You just
Yeah.
have to approach your content strategy a bit differently, because at the end of the day, as once again, I learned that from you, the business model matters a lot when it comes to defining your content strategy.
Definitely. Definitely. Cool. Well, if we don't have any other questions, we can wrap up a few minutes early. Just a reminder for folks that we will send you an email with a link to the recording, and we will link to the templates and other resources that George shared. Um, George, thank you again. Like I said in the beginning, I echo the same sentiment a lot. We really appreciate you. You always really bring it with these webinars, and we're very grateful to you. So thank you so much. And we will be announcing the next one shortly. So keep an eye on our newsletter and the announcements channel in Slack for more information on that.
Thank you very much.
Take care, everybody.